Hi friends, it's Lexa, and today I'm coming to you from the future where I have already read The Raven Cycle to give you a little bit of an intro, some context before we jump right in. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, this vlog is a little bit of a hot mess. I decided to read The Raven Cycle while I was down visiting my dad. It's kind of like my own tradition. During the summers, my parents were divorced, so my dad lived like 45 minutes away. I would take like a few weeks and like go stay down there, and I would read a series. Back then, it was Harry Potter. I don't do that anymore. I would like reread it, not anymore. So I've created a new tradition as an adult whenever I go visit my dad that I read a new like fantasy series or a new series of books. Last time it was Mistborn, ended up being my favorite series of all time. This time I chose The Raven Cycle, and let me tell you, this was a roller coaster of a ride. I've probably already spoiled it, likely with the thumbnail and the title, so I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil it again. This is now my favorite series of all time. I thought nothing was going to top Mistborn, and I almost DNF'd this at the beginning of the vlog. You'll see a little bit more there. The reason I wanted to hop in is because now I have a little bit more coherent thoughts, and the first clip that I filmed, which you will see a little bit of, it was so windy, and I don't know why I thought to myself, oh, you won't be able to hear this. It won't be that bad. It's pretty bad. But just keep in mind that like, it does end up getting better. And while this is a little bit of a chaotic mess, for me, it is so worth it just because of how much of an impact this had on me. It sent me into the biggest reading slump I've ever been in, since I've been like an active reader this last couple of years, because I loved it so much. And now it's been hard to get into anything else because I'm like, nothing is gonna compare. I keep things pretty vague. We do like a little spoiler section, just like a little side note to justify to you why I'm so excited without spoiling anything. At the end, everything else is spoiler free. So while the production of this vlog is not the highest quality one I have ever produced, the book series is. So hopefully it balances out. I'm so excited for you all to see this. If you've read this, let me know down in the comments what you've thought about it. Talk to me about it. So let's go ahead and jump back to past Lexa, who had no idea what was coming. Hi friends, we're in Florida. It's nice outside, so I'm not going to be sitting inside for this update. So we're gonna make the crows and other such birds that are cawing our friends, and hopefully this wind is not too loud. Hopefully I do not regret my decision to film outside. But I've been wanting to dive into these books, but I didn't want to dive into them before updating you. No one would ever know that I do this for a living. We're reading The Raven Cycle. I cannot wait. So, do I have any idea what this is about? No. Nope, I do not. I believe it's like paranormal fantasy-ish, maybe urban fantasy, maybe it takes place in our world, maybe I'm completely making that up. Oh, this lighting is gonna be all over the place because of my hat. I could take it off, but I don't want to. I am so excited to get a little break, be in the sun. Today is actually sunny. It's been hit and miss here. So I'm gonna sit in the pool and start reading The Raven Boys. I have the audiobooks from Libby for these two, and I started listening to the audiobook, just like a few minutes of it to see if I loved it, and I think it's gonna be good. Okay, I don't know why I forgot, but I definitely know what this book is about. I don't know the premise of the whole series, but the first series, we're following Blue, and she, I think, is like destined and cursed to, she has this curse around like her first love. So she's been cursed where like the first person that she kisses is gonna be the first person that she's in love with, I think, and then they're gonna die. Of course the wind comes now. So that's incredibly awkward and unfortunate. The Raven Boys are like this group of boys who go to this one school, and I think their paths are all going to cross. And they're like very mysterious in this town, but she's going to discover through them that like real magic exists because her family has like a sprinkle of magic. They can like do little things with future and telling the future and predicting things, but nothing quite like what I got a feeling our main girl Blue is going to discover. I went from being not at all interested, thought about possibly DNFing this and just scrapping the whole video, to being incredibly interested and like, let me see if I can find a good example. Just filling pages with highlights and underlining. I'm in, I'm invested. You won me over. I will say, for the fact that this is like a YA book, it's pretty slow paced. Nothing has really happened, but we all know that is my thing. I think that this, like the main thing I'm gonna end up loving about this is the friendships and the relationships and the connections between the characters. Because as far as plot and where this is all going, I have no idea. I could not tell you any more than what I told you originally. But I am a little over halfway through, and I'm like flying by. It took about 100 pages for me to get into it and get to that point that I was invested, but I am officially on board and I hope it stays that way. Reminder everyone to take your Flintstones vitamins. I have to be quiet because everyone in the house is asleep. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I love all of these characters so much. So much. They have my heart. All of it. Take it. was talking about before I came down here how I wasn't sure if I should get the Kindle versions of this or the physical version because it was pretty much the same exact price, and since I was like traveling, like reading off a Kindle is easier, but I love having the physical version of series that I've read, and I'm so glad that I have the physical version of this because this is going to be well loved. Like, this is not going to be something that sits pretty on the shelf, but I love it so much. Oh my god. I don't know what else to say. I will say, I mentioned this before, that I went into this thinking it was like higher fantasy. So far, that's not how I describe this. I would describe this as a contemporary story, like contemporary friendship story, specifically, with a mystery to solve that involves a little bit of magic slash science-y magic, and we are getting people together in the pursuit of like taking care of each other and trying to figure out this mystery. And that's kind of what is driving the plot. And oh my god, I wanted to come on here and be able to tell you like who some of my favorite characters were, and I just feel like I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't pick. I thought at first when I was going to DNF this, it was the parts of the Raven Boys. This isn't like, I don't know if it's technically multi-point of view because it's in third person, but each chapter you can tell the narrator is taking the view of either the Raven Boys or someone else or Blue. I don't want to give away who the other person is because I don't know if it's technically a spoiler. We start getting his perspective early on, but just in case. I also am hesitant to tell you what the main plot of this book is because I've heard it described that way, but the synopsis on the back of the book doesn't use those words. So that's why I'm sticking kind of vaguely with like a science magic mystery that they're trying to look for something or trying to look for answers to something. And I'm sure I could just tell you what that is, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone. I'm so excited that this is the series that I brought down here. Oh, but what I was saying was that I started off really struggling to get through the point of view of the Raven Boys. I think mainly because I struggle with names and remembering who each person is, so I was getting confused and it was slowing me down, and that was frustrating me a little bit that I had to keep kind of like going back and seeing who was who. And I thought that maybe that was going to be something I didn't like about this book, was that the characters weren't very distinct because I started off not really being able to tell who was who when they were first talking, but that's not a problem at all. Once I got my grounds of who each boy was, how many are we following? 4 Raven Boys in Blue. Once I figured out probably like around that 100-page mark of who was who and what their stories were and what we had talked about surrounding them so far, then it was like I was in. I was so on board, and getting to see the way that they take care of each other. This really reminded me, I just read this recently, of The Wicker King, in the sense that we have teenagers who have gone through a lot, who have too much on their plate and shouldn't have to be navigating the world in the way that they are and dealing with what they are, but who are taking care of each other and learning how to survive, and learning how to survive by loving each other and trying to figure out who they are and what they want in this life. I just love those kinds of stories so much. Normally in my fantasy I want a little bit more magic, but I don't even mind that there's not so far this like strong magic system because of the character work. Honestly, I wouldn't go into this for plot, which if it's a book that I love, usually it is not very plot heavy, so that makes sense. And I wouldn't go in this for a strong, heavy fantasy magic system. But if you loved that about The Wicker King, I think you could love this. This is very well loved. I'm sure most people who are watching this have either heard of it or have read it. Apparently I am like way behind on this, but I'm glad that I'm finally getting on board. I will say I don't know quite how I feel about the audiobook at this point in time. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I'm still listening to it as I go along, and I don't think it's affecting, like it's not making me love this any less, and it is helping me to kind of keep going and figure out who is who and who is talking. I just don't know if I love the narrator so much. Would I give this 5 stars? Yes. Which scares me a little bit because normally first books in series like this are not 5 stars for me. This happened with me in Mistborn, which was the last series that I read when I was down here. I gave the first book 4 star, and I even said in my review, I feel like this could be a 5-star pardon reread now that we know what's going on and I've gotten a little bit more time to learn who everyone is and what what is actually happening once some things get revealed. And this, I felt like was gonna end up being the same way. Well, I thought I wasn't even gonna like the characters, so I thought I was gonna DNF it at first. Aside from the fact that the characters took me longer to resonate with, I don't think that that's necessarily a book thing. After that 100-page mark, it was like, oh my god. I couldn't stop highlighting. I kept carrying around my pen and my pencil and highlighter everywhere I went. let me think about that. Sometimes after I've sat with a book for a little bit longer, I'm like, okay, maybe that wasn't a 5-star. But either way, I loved this and I'm so excited to start the second one. So 4.5 or 5-star. I'm sure by the time I'm done with this whole series, we'll go through and give a definitive ranking and star rating. But now we're on to the second book. I forgot to mention, I am both super nervous and excited to start this one because I feel like when I hear people talk about this series, The Dream Thieves is like the book that people love the most. But that makes me super excited to get into it, but also a little bit nervous because I don't want the series to peak ever. I just want it to keep getting better. Okay, so Ronan it mentions 3 brothers. And they keep mentioning that there's 3 brothers, but I only know of one other. So I don't know if maybe I just missed the other one and he's not important, or if I missed the other one, but like we're supposed to know that there's a third and we don't know. Oh, there we go. The lighting got a little bit better, but we don't know exactly who he is. So that is my pervasive question going into book number 2, but also the prologue for book 2, incredible. On top of all of this that I'm loving so far, I love her writing, and I wasn't really expecting that. I thought that it would just be like, I thought that this was just a good story, but so many lines of like the way that she puts things and the metaphors that she uses and the imagery, and normally I don't really care about those kinds of things as much, but it is adding to the overall story so much that is definitely a pleasant surprise. Maggie really said, all of us have secrets in our lives. We're keepers or kept from, players or played, secrets and cockroaches. That's what will be left at the end of it all. Okay. First, I want to apologize if the audio is a little bit weird. I cannot turn the air down anymore than it currently is, and I definitely can't turn the car off. I will overheat. It's hot here. But with that being said, I am on a Starbucks run, and I was going to update you all while I was sitting by the pool today, but then there are people working on the fence next door, and not only like obviously does that make noise, but also I hate filming where people can hear/see me filming. So that was a negative on that. So I figured while we're in the car on our Starbucks run, that would be perfect because I've got lots of updates to give you. It's been a few days since I last updated you. A lot has happened. First and most importantly, I went to see Taylor Swift. Yes. Oh my god. Words cannot describe. Absolutely incredible. The before and after the concert, a bit tricky. We ended up walking like over 6 miles that day. Yeah, in the Florida heat. It was a lot. I almost passed out on the side of the road at one point. That was a lot of fun. But it was all worth it. It ended up being wonderful. But because of that, I definitely didn't tape as much as I thought that I would. Honestly, I was just focused on survival and feeling okay for the concert because there was a moment in there that I was a little bit worried that I was gonna be too sick to stay. But it ended up being okay. I had a blast. I went with my dad and my cousin and my stepmom. 12 out of 10. This was the first time I'm seeing her. I'm gonna see her again in Kansas City. Oh, so from that, like that whole day was shot for reading. The next day I was so exhausted. I basically did nothing except eat because I was also starving and lay around. And then the day after that I had a play to go to with my family. So I pretty much didn't read for 3 days. But yesterday, and then I finished it up today, I read basically the entirety of The Dream Thieves. I have so many thoughts. First, let me just say, my 2 favorite characters so far, and they're actually the people who, did I already tell you this? I don't think so. I meant to tell you who my favorite characters were when I first started this, but Persephone and Ronan. And this just really sealed in that love that I have for those 2 characters by far. Absolutely love them the most. I love all of the characters, but they just have like this special place in my heart anytime that they are on the page. And this was really like Ronan's moment to shine. So I was really excited about that because I could tell I really loved him in the first book, but we didn't know a lot about him, and that was like kind of part of who he is. And now we started to learn a lot more, and it was incredible. This definitely has a lot more plot than the first book does, which I think is why people love this book so much. This is really plot heavy, and the plot is fantastic. I kept thinking that I knew all of the plot twists. I didn't know any of them. Okay, there were so many things that I was like, oh my god, how did I not see that coming? Like, she did such a good job giving us those little, like, a trail, but it wasn't obvious. And oh, this book is well loved. Okay, it is well highlighted, and I took notes, and it is torn to pieces, but in the best way possible. But I don't know. Did I love it more than the first one? Probably. I don't know. Probably. Okay, yes. For now, I'm gonna say that this one is my favorite, and then the first one, but it's so close. I think I ended up definitively on Storygraph giving the first one 4.5 stars. This one was 5 stars. So yeah, I definitely liked it. It was so close, but this one was a 5 star. Like, there's nothing I would really change about this, but the way that she describes people and things and feelings is just, oh my god. She puts words to feelings that we've all had in just the most beautiful, incredible, descriptive way, but nothing that feels like she's trying too hard or it's overly flowery or super purple prose. It just works. I will say, definitely I don't like the audiobook. There's a character in here that comes into play a little bit more in this book than the first one, and the way that the narrator narrates his voice, I can't. I absolutely cannot. I had to stop listening to the audiobook. It was definitively impacting my experience for the second book. So this definitely has a love triangle aspect to it, the first and the second book. And normally I hate love triangles. And I wouldn't say that I'm glad that the love triangle aspect is in here. I don't know if it added anything for me, but it didn't take anything away, which normally it does. Normally I hate love triangles. I feel like they go the same way every time. You end up having to ruin a character or make me not like a character, or one is so obviously the one that's meant for the person that it just doesn't feel, it feels like a plot device, not actually something that adds to the story. And I didn't feel that way with this one. I know that it's not going to happen, okay? And I wish this with every love triangle, but I just want us to change the typical love triangle trope and turn it into they all fall in love with each other. Like, everyone is just in love with each other. And I know it's not going to happen with this one, but it would have just been so good.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Oh, and I know that it's so important. Like, this does such a good job at showing the importance of platonic love and friendship and those deep friendship bonds. And I love that it does that, because I think that we need more of that in books in general, especially in YA books. And I wouldn't change that. A part of me also just wishes that we would just like take that step and just make them all fall in love. But I understand. So I'm going to pick up my Starbucks. It should be ready by now. I'm going to start Blue Lily Blue. This one is definitely the shortest out of the 3 so far, but I think the font is a little bit different, or how, like, the amount of space it takes up on the page. So maybe it won't actually end up being shorter. Maybe it's just the way that it's laid out in this. Hopefully I'll have some more time to sit by the pool today and just chill out. This would probably look cute if I put my hair back up. It's easier when I had a mirror, but this is fine. I just got done filming some TikToks I had to film for my personal finance channel. So I thought, while I have makeup on and I'm ready, I would update you on this. I'm a little nervous. We're getting plot heavy, and I just don't know if I care about the plot as much as I care about the characters. Shocking, I know. I'm only 54 pages in, so I could absolutely eat my words, but I'm glad that we're getting like more into the mystery, and you can tell that we're gonna start getting answers to some of the questions that we've had since like literally page 1 of the first book. But we're also heading down, like, we've got just a lot to balance, okay? And I'm trusting Maggie that she can balance it all, but I am a little bit nervous about where this is going. It's been a while since I updated you. I think there's a mixture of reasons why. I've definitely been in a reading slump. It's been like 2 weeks since I got back from Florida, but I have not really finished anything else. So I don't think that I updated you on the 3rd book. So since I've talked to you, I did finish Blue Lily Blue. Up until this point, this is my favorite. The last like 20-ish pages, it's not that I didn't like them, they just weren't as great as the rest of the book, but I don't even care. And let me just say, without giving it away, I wasn't right, but I also wasn't wrong. How this book has handled something, which I mentioned, okay, it did not go the way that I thought it was going to, or I hoped that it was going to, but I don't even care, because this is just going to go down as like, something that fills up my soul so much. I love these characters. I swear, I really hope future Lexa can let me know, because I haven't looked at this footage since I filmed it. I think that I mentioned who my 2 favorite characters were, Rowan and Persephone, and I'm so glad that I mentioned that at the beginning. Dory is playing with her toy, because, oh, that was just so solidified. And that has been so solidified throughout this entire series. Circling back to the reading slump, that honestly, the reason I've been in such a slump is because I don't want this to end. Book 4, last book. What is this even called? The Raven King. I don't want it to end. The thought of this ending, and I get it, like I can reread it and I'm sure I will, but I know that I only get to read this for the first time one time. And so as chapters goes on, like as it goes on and I keep reading chapters and it just keeps getting better and better because somehow so far this book is topping the third book for me, which I didn't even know was possible. And if I'm right that everyone like freaks out over the second book, I mean, I thought it was good, but like that's nowhere near the third and so far this fourth book for me. I can't even put words to how in love with this series I am and how in love with the characters I am and how in love I am with where this story is going and the writing and literally just everything about it. And I think that it has put me in a slump, but not in a bad way. Just in a way of like, I can't imagine reading anything else other than this, but I also don't want to finish it. So I just haven't been reading. I've just been watching Survivor. I'm on page 322. I only have like 100 pages left. And I've literally just been like picking it up and reading a chapter or two and crying and then putting it back down. And then picking it up and getting sad that it's about to end, reading a couple of chapters and putting it back down. But I also think the reason that I stopped updating as much, one, when I left, in my mind, I was like, oh, I can finish like this super quickly once I get back. So the majority of the vlog is still like me in Florida. And then when I realized I didn't want it to end and I wasn't reading as much, I just kept wanting to keep it to myself. But like, I also know that even just like for future me, like I'm gonna love having this to look back on, and I've been writing my notes and my thoughts in here so that when I go back and reread this, I can see what I was thinking and feeling and who I liked and who I didn't like and how the twists and turns came about and what I saw coming and what I didn't, because holy shit, there have been so many things that like the pieces were all there. Once you know what's happening, it's like, oh my God, how did I not see that coming? But I didn't see it coming until it was like revealed. I was like, and it's just like that over and over and over again without feeling too chaotic plot heavy. This also feels like a little high, so we're just gonna bring that down. Should have done that a while ago, but here we are. But I figured if I did not update you now, I probably wouldn't update you until I was done, and I did want to do one more update before I finish out the entire series. But I'm a little bit nervous because yes, there's like 100 pages left, but that does not feel like enough time for us to get all of the answers that we want and for everything to come together. And we have been spending this entire series just like leading up to so many things that have not had their conclusion yet. And I'm like, holy fucking shit. Maggie, don't do this to me. I just so badly want this to end well. And I couldn't even tell you right now how I want this to end because I don't know. And I am usually a fan of open endings, so I don't even necessarily know if I would be mad about leaving some things open, but it just feels like where we're at in the plot right now, we could have another full book after this. But just know I love this. I don't know if I'll ever be the same, and I don't want to jinx it, but if these 100 pages even just like slightly live up, and if the last 100 pages live up to what has been happening, I don't see how this would not be my favorite series of all time. Which last time I was in Florida visiting my dad, I read Mistborn, which ended up being my favorite series of all time. And I did not know how a series was going to top that. And I definitely did not expect it to be this one. So hopefully you can't hear my neighbor who has been like drilling away out there. But I need to film this video so I can finally come to terms with the fact that I have finished the Raven cycle. These are technically backwards, but whatever, we all get the point. Yep, I cried a lot and I was gonna film it, but here's the thing, is that Mistborn, at the end of it, like that was like still, I will still hold that that's the best ending I've ever read to a trilogy or to a book in general. I was literally sobbing, like could not catch my breath sobbing. A book has never made me do that before. And in the middle of that, while I still had like 4 or 5 pages left to read, this was back in the winter when my heat wasn't working and the guys came to fix my heat. So I had to like stop reading, answer the door, and I had like been sobbing and it was so clear that I've been sobbing. So now that is like my memory with that ending. So this time I was like, I think it's important that I just be in the moment and like be in the book and not worry about like recording it and getting all of that set up while I'm like mid-tier, you know? This is my favorite series of all time. And I almost DNF'd it and didn't do this video. Maybe some books are worth giving a little bit more of a chance past like the first 40 or 50 pages. I don't know what to do with my life now, to be perfectly honest with you. I was looking at Oliver, who's down here. I will say this is not perfect. I do think, remember when I checked in and I was like, there's not enough time for everything to happen that needs to happen? I still feel like the ending was rushed. I still feel like we could have gotten a whole other book. And I guess I didn't know this. When I went to go look and see what other books that have been written by this author, I noticed that there's like a second trilogy that kind of follows one or some of the characters that this book follows. I don't know if it would be a spoiler to tell you like which ones, so I won't. So I guess kind of, but like this storyline needed a whole other book or could have used a whole other book. But it doesn't even matter because the impact that this had on me and how important this was for me and just everything about this, how beautiful the writing was and the story and the friendship and the love that was in this book, all of that was so perfect that I don't even care that there were like some plot things or I wish that like the endings had been done a little bit differently on like especially the third and fourth book. It doesn't even matter because those are still two of my favorite books. But when I went looking at reviews, people do bring up a really good point about book 2 and why people love book 2 so much is that typically we see, especially with like trilogies, like middle book syndrome, where it's just kind of like the middle book is being used to lead you from where you were in the first book to like where you need to go in the last part of the book series. This is not that. This is the third and fourth, or the second and third books, like best middle sequels I've ever read. Did not feel like they dragged at all. I'm in love. And I should have known that considering how similar, like this is, the only reason I really ever heard about the Raven Boys was because of Kayla from Books and Lala and how much I watch her videos and how like in sync our tastes are, except for on a few things where they differ. And I don't know why I just like figured that this was more of a nostalgia thing for her, which I assume it probably is partly that, because all I'd really ever heard of this was her talking about rereading it and how it's like her favorite series of all time, and she uses it in like a few books for like reread examples and her timing, like how fast she can read video. I guess I just thought it was like the story and the friendship and that kind of thing. I didn't realize, like now that I know, okay? And this is just incredible. I wish that I had read this when I was younger, but I'm so glad that I read this now. I feel like as an adult, this is my favorite series of all time, hands down, but it's also just one of the best YA fantasy-esque magical series that I've ever read. There's a certain thing that I don't want to say because I wouldn't typically consider this to be a spoiler, but because it was so special to me that I didn't know that going into the book, I don't want to say. But it's also, it would be like a really good selling point for the book. Not a selling point, but like something that I feel like could make people be like, oh, okay, this book would be for me. So maybe I'll do like a spoilery section at the end of this video. I wish that I had more articulate words to be able to say to describe to you how I feel about this. I wish that I had comparisons. So what was the point? I don't know, other than watching me just spiral into bliss and also just spiraling into a reading slump because I still haven't been able to finish another book. I picked up another series hoping maybe that'll kickstart me, but anything that I start, I just think to myself, this is not gonna be as good as what you just read. Which is an unfair like expectation to put on a book, you know? But that's where I'm at right now. So maybe I just need a little bit of time. Maybe I need to reread this already, who knows? I'm so glad that I have the physical versions of this. Past Lexa, who decided that getting a physical copy instead of doing just the ebooks, fantastic idea because I'm going to cherish these like beat up. They already are gross because I read a lot of them in the sun with like sunscreen and sweat and stuff, but I'm so glad that I have my highlights and my thoughts from these in like their original form. So that's it. That's all I'm gonna say. Other than a spoilerly section, I won't do big spoilers, but if you want to know what I'm kind of talking about, stick around. If not, totally understand. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for coming on this magical experience with me. Sorry it took me a little bit longer than I was expecting, but we got there and I am so happy with how this went. Leave a little bird emoji in the comments below. If you've read this before, also let me know who your favorite character is in the series and why it's Ronan Lynch. Okay, I'm just kidding. If you have a different favorite character, that's fine, but like, do you? Do you? Hit that thumbs up and that subscribe button if you want to see more, and let's go ahead and get into my spoiler-y-ish thoughts. Okay, are you gone? Gone? If you want to be gone? Cool. Why did no one tell me this series is queer? Remember, I fucking hope that I filmed this. Remember when I said that I hate love triangles and how my ideal love triangle would just be that they all got together? That's not what happens. That's not what happens. But I'm not mad because the way that this was handled, that like love triangle kind of thing that we were set up, flawless, even better than my original idea, honestly. I still want to see that love triangle, but this, oh my God. And I'm so kind of like thankful that I didn't know that going into it, but I do think, like, I'm glad that I still continued reading this, because I think had I known that, I would have gone into this more like excited and more ready. But also, I don't think that this like series would have had the impact on me that it did if I knew that going in. So I don't think that like sexuality or queerness is a spoiler. I want to make that very clear. But because I experienced it not knowing that going in, and because it doesn't really, like, I've never seen it advertised as a queer fantasy romance book, which I still wouldn't, it's not fantasy romance. The main thing is the love that all of these characters have for each other, and just the different ways that that love manifests. And my little queer polyamorous heart so wishes that I had read this. Like, especially, it didn't exist during my Twilight days, but if this had existed, like right around my loving Twilight, A, maybe I would have developed a little bit of a healthier understanding of what healthy relationships look like, but B, maybe I also would have realized that I was queer before I did. So that's it. I'm not gonna go too more into spoilers. Ronan is probably my favorite character ever written. Probably just like technically one of the best characters I've ever read, especially in YA. And I love this so much. That is all. Bye!